coming back at you. It is your boy, and it is January. I'm sorry, April 5th, 2025. It is hands off day protest, mad wide protest against Trump's administration. Mind the background noise, but just wanted to say that hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys are safe. Hope you guys are you know you know what I'm saying. Um, Getting into good trouble like Senator Booker has guided us to do. And if you guys do not know what that means, it means to stand up for your rights and remember that you have rights and stand up for those rights, knowing that maybe some policies that have been put in place, maybe some social norms that have become the norm, some social narratives have become the norm that uh, might deem you, sort of a miscreant, a criminal, or a heathen, or whatever. You know what I mean? The point is to not give in to other people's, but my advice to people is to remember who you are. Remember you are an American, and remember that this country is for the people, by the people, and that John Adams gave you constitutional rights, which are the Bill of Rights that were supposed to defend your sovereignty and this nation, not corporations, right? And that the law was not made, though it has been infiltrated and overturned many times. I know it was not made initially. This country was never meant to be a country that the police were supposed to are supposed to protect businesses and property and corporations instead of protecting the people. Okay, at the expense of our sovereignty rights. So remember, guys, that when you're out there doing this stuff, remember that it is the normal thing. It is the most American thing is to have a voice and to protest against tyranny and corruption. That is the most American thing there is. You know what I mean? And so if you see my message, I hope you guys understand that. Remember, hopefully remember John Adams, specifically, the Constitution. Hopefully that gives you strength. You know what I mean today, and hopefully some prayer will give you strength today, and hopefully together we can change history and succeed where our predecessors that came before us failed. Because a quick history lesson, last two times that tariffs were introduced, tariffs are nothing but a tool that the rich have used to bankrupt the nation and enslave us while they enrich themselves and enrich their corporations. They cause stock market crashes on purpose. They alienate us from countries who we later go to war with, and create new. They concentrate new power and authority. You know what I mean? In order for them to enrich themselves and control the narrative, control history, control us, only if we allow them. Though we are armed with more tools than our predecessors were back 100 years ago and 100 years before that, we have to remember that what we're up against is something that of people who are not remorseful, people who are not driven by justice or creed or even love or this or even love for this nation, but they're driven by power, and power corrupts. Absolutely, they're driven by money and greed. You have to remember these people are not remorseful. They're not going to give in easily, and you can never underestimate to which level these human beings will hurt other human beings in order to hold on to their power. You know what I mean? That being said, we shall overcome this because we will not give in to their tyrannical request or their tyrannical narrative or anything like this. I think a bunch of people in MAGA are waking up. I think a lot of people have understood, but if you just go back and you understand that our predecessors did fail at this, when they tried to go against when the people that infiltrated America, were had everything in position, when they had already infiltrated it, they had already set up their fall guys, they had already set up their viceroys, their viceroys or whatever, or rather their overseers, their Caesars, their whatever. Um, they what they did was they corrupted the masses, and it was too late for them until when they found out. Um, they planned this for a long time. Is what I'm trying to say. So where they failed, where we have to remember that that fact actually is that they've been working a long time at this, and that is not going to be a simple easy thing, to get to stop the whole system and all that. You know what I mean? It's many levels that has to be stopped. Personally, I would suggest to write down everybody's single name in the administration, and keep a record of everybody, because those are all people that were guilty, of helping, this whole thing happen. 100 years ago, this country was infiltrated by a group of people who took over this government. You know what I mean? And led to the the first depression, the market depression, which is what tariffs lead to as well. Tariffs is like the last sign of economical collapse, right before an economical collapse. You know what I mean? And it's almost like a move. People in desperation have to go to that length to try to force some type of tariffs on others. You know what I mean? And economically speaking, the economical, grand foreign economic, or rather the whole economical, market of and foreign relations and stuff. That's basically an act of war. You know what I mean? And it's very drastic measures, and it affects people like war. It's a nuclear option, so to speak. You know what I mean? Where it's just desperation, or it's just like the last attempt, like the failure for any other real plan. You know what I mean? So you know, that being said, um, I have faith, what I mean, that we will not fail where our predecessors fell, because our predecessors weren't able to, well, there's a lot of reasons. One of those reasons is there wasn't, y'all didn't have me here, for one thing, y'all didn't have us brothers and sisters, melanated people, on your side with a voice that have, are privy to these things. Unfortunately, when they did this to Americans the first time, they had similar things, like they didn't have like racism and stuff, but mainly white people that were bitching about this, they failed because you know they just, I guess, well, I guess it was timing. They also didn't have women on their side, opposing this stuff. It was mainly just men, and it wasn't men who came from suffrage. It was white men who were privileged, who had grown a dependency on the government, and had grown on actually thinking that the government was going to answer to them. And I feel as though that nowadays we are a little bit more divided, but in a good way. I think that we can see where some people won't help us, how we have to rely on other things like ourselves and other ways, innovative ways, to survive. You know what I mean? And we have history of suffrage movements. Again, we didn't. Our predecessors didn't really have this stuff. Y'all didn't have blacks, suffrage guys. Y'all didn't have women suffrage. Y'all didn't have Latinos, on your, trying to help you out in your own government. You know what I mean? Because I'm not. Let me tell you something. Well, I don't even want to talk about that, but we're not racist. We shouldn't be racist. And so it's not even about that. But for them it is. For the other side, it is about race. What I mean? For them, it's about preservation of their race and stuff. You know what I mean? And as well as greed. So anyway, let's let's. I'm gonna pray right now. So let's just go into prayer. And I think that for me personally, I know that there's a lot of people that don't believe in religion. They might have something to say about religion, but for me, I think that, or they might want a separation of that. I don't really. I think that the greatest presidents were religious, and when you look back, and they practiced the religion, they actually interwoven some of the religion inside of it without necessarily being a thing, a dogma, or a rule or a law. It's just influence. It's just like you know it's just mindfulness. What I mean? It's just caring. Um, I got a good example, like Abraham Lincoln.